All right. Hello there, home gamers. Welcome back to another Corona Geek Hangout on Air. I'm Charles McKeever, and I'm joined here in the virtual studio with Dr. Brian Burton
Hello.
and Toph Ward. Say hello, guys. So, if you're just joining us, thank you for being with us. This is our 5th episode of Corona Geek on Air, and we are the hangout show all about Corona SDK and mobile app development. So thanks for spending some time with us. And if you haven't watched the previous 4 episodes, you can catch those over at YouTube under the username of Corona Geek. We've got a whole channel over there where you can subscribe and catch all of our previous shows. So with all that being said, what are we going to talk about today? Chris, if you're talking to me, I can't hear you. You're going to have to break out the sign language, dude.
Oh, here you go. Much better.
It's the hat. The hat just totally overrode the microphone.
It absorbs the sound. But it keeps all the aliens away, so we're good, right? So
You got tinfoil on the inside.
ooh, that's an improvement. I gotta look at that one. Anyway, let's talk about the latest build notes, as always, because as developers, we always want to know what's the latest and greatest. As a newbie to mobile development, I basically have a few questions about sprites and pixies. I have a little girl at my house, so we cover those often. A couple of blog highlights, an app review, because we always like those. And then a little bit about devices, because obviously the Surface is coming around to the surface, pun intended. And then we'll close off with an API spotlight. How's that?
Awesome. That's great. That sounds like a good lineup. We got a lot to talk about. Build notes, especially. There's a lot of build notes since the last time we talked.
They were busy.
I think. Yeah, they've been really busy. I mean, last week Apple announced the iPhone 5 and iOS6, which we all knew was coming, but that means busy for the Corona Labs guys. So let's talk about build notes. Now, if you're not familiar with Corona Labs, you're going to want to go to coronalabs.com and check out everything that they have over there. And all of these build notes we got from the website, so you can check those out as well on their general summary. But we're going to kind of talk about each of these as we go through, so stay with us. So for Build 909, they had a laundry list of releases. So let's just kind of go through these real quickly and see if we can pick out the good bits. On the Mac Simulator, they did a daily build user can now build against iOS 6. So prior to the announcement of iOS 6, I guess you couldn't build for iOS 6, which means you couldn't submit to the App Store. And now you can, which is great. Because when is iOS 6 supposed to be? I mean, it's coming out along with the iPhone 5, right? So that's this Friday?
Well, your devices are going to be able to be updated this Wednesday, the 19th.
Wednesday the 19th. Okay, great. Yeah, I went out and loaded the developer, was it the Golden Master or whatever that?
I like to wait for the final release. I've been burned on betas before.
Yeah. Well, and you can't go back. You can't.
Right.
You can't revert back, but it'll go ahead and auto update once the official build comes out. So yeah, I was a little impatient. I wanted to see, and it actually fixed some camera glitches that I was having on my iPhone 4, which was kind of cool. So there's also on the Mac, there's new skins now for the iPhone 5, Kindle Fire HD 7 and 9, Galaxy S3, and they say that they've also improved the sharpness of the Galaxy Tab, iPad Retina, iPhone 4, Kindle Fire, Nook Color when viewing at 50%. So I'm assuming that's in the simulator. They're improving the sharpness of it, which you can. In the simulator, you can zoom in and zoom out, right? You can make things big and right? You can make things large. Is that correct?
Yeah, you can do your pinch and your expand.
Well, I'm just talking about zooming the device. You can zoom and make the device.
Oh, yes.
A little one, and you can make it huge, fill the whole screen if you want to. So yeah, there's the pull up on the screen there. There's the build notes. Toph's got those pulled up for us, so you can go look at those as well. On the Android and iOS devices, they've added the ability to display the App Store write review window via the native show pop-up function. So that's pretty cool. I mean, I guess that's for you, so that people can write reviews on your own app. Maybe is that? You think so?
That'd be my opinion. Yeah, that'd be the perfect use for that little tool.
Or maybe you can encourage people to write negative reviews about your competitors. I don't know. No, that's probably not a good idea.
Probably not.
Let's see here. Oh, okay. So, and then it supports the iTunes App Store, Google Play, Amazon App Store, Samsung App Store, and Nook App Store. Well, that's pretty cool. So you can't. It's not just for iOS. It's for all of them. That's pretty cool. I don't think I have very positive things to say about the Nook App Store. We recently tried to publish a book on the Nook App Store, and it was a simple enough process, but the app itself, at least on the desktop, on the Mac version of the desktop Nook app, not that impressive. So, just my 2 cents. On the core, they added display.pixel width and display.pixel height. On iOS, you can use this to detect which of your operating systems. Oh, if you're operating on an iPhone 5. Right. So now what is that? I thought if you put a file into the iOS or into the file system of your project, it would just automatically default to iPhone 5.
It'll automatically default, but inside your actual app itself, you may want to know what the size or what device you're working on. And so now you can do a check for what type of iPhone the app is running on, so you can make the changes, or you might have a different layout for an iPhone 4S or an iPhone 5.
So if you wanted to force it, you'd use the file, and if you wanted to detect it, you'd use the code?
That's how I understand it, yes.
Okay. Hopefully we'll get some clarification on that as we go forward. So Mac and Windows, they fixed a bug in the Corona Simulator where system.getInfo mode would return Nook color instead of the actual device ID. So that's cool. Windows and Mac, they also updated the model names in the Corona Simulator of Galaxy S3 and the Kindle Fire HD to match the actual devices, which I assume is handy. I haven't built for the Galaxy S3 or anything like that. So what are you doing there? Are you trying to detect again for the device type? Is that what's going on?
Yeah. You're recognizing it as a Galaxy or a Kindle Fire HD, and again, this is just simply an update because of the new HD version of the Kindle Fire. Okay. So they've added new devices and the model names for those devices so that you can detect for them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I hadn't seen the Galaxy S3 one yet. That's pretty cool. That's a device I'm actually interested in. Android, they fixed the native text box to vertically top align itself. Oh, I'm sorry. Why am I saying this? Native text box to vertically top align its text instead of vertically centering it. Okay. Vertically align top. What does that say? Translate.
Translation, it's going to line up at the top instead of by the middle of the text, so it's not going to be affected by your font size.
Okay, so good. So it's the upper left of the text is what it's.
Yeah, it's going off the top of the text instead of the center of the text.
Okay, well that seems like it would be helpful.
Which your font size would adjust the size of your font, so it would change where the center is. So this is a good thing. Go with
it. Okay, good. No, that's good. That's good. I'm just trying to make sure that there's a lot of things I don't understand. So with Windows, they added a new device skins for iPhone 5, Galaxy S3, Kindle Fire HD 7 and 9, and that's kind of mirroring what they did for the Mac. And then if we jump here to build, that was just in build 909. So that was a lot of stuff that was released.
They were busy last week.
Yeah, definitely busy. And I'm sure, all this stuff. what I like is all this stuff that we read is, just line items that are kind of summarizing what they've got going on. But there's a lot of time and effort and everything behind that. I mean, hours and hours before they could even, push it out. So
well, and that's one of the best things about building with Corona, in my opinion, is I don't have to worry about the native changes to my app to handle all of this. It's all being taken care of by the great people at Corona Labs. They're taking care of the heavy lifting for me, and so I can lift, the lightweight stuff and focus on building my app, not on the device.
Yeah, good, very well said. Yeah, it's the focus on actually getting something done as opposed to down in the weeds. So
right.
Definitely for sure. So in build 9.10 for iOS 6, you can the make UI window always adapt to full screen size. Touches were not going through at the bottom of the iPhone 5, so they've kind of fixed that.
So it was missing that extra half inch.
Was it down at the bottom?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Which would be important if you want everything to go all the way down to the bottom. At this point, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how many people are actually. You think they're developing already for the iPhone 5?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're already on it.
Yeah. If I had an app that really took advantage of that extra screen space, I would definitely want to be there on the launch day. On the 21st, I want my app in the store.
Yeah, just to get featured, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a chance to kind of be separated from all the other apps.
Right.
Definitely. Okay.
Might get featured by Apple. That suddenly makes you a millionaire.
Yeah, it's always a good Tuesday, right?
Specially built for iPhone 5.
That's right. Exactly. Claim it while you can. Okay, so in the core, it says adds display.actualContentWidth and display.actualContentHeight, which is the width and height of the screen in Corona units. Now, I couldn't help but stop down for Corona units. Do you know what a Corona unit is? Does anybody know what a Corona unit is? Is it a scale of? Because I've read some other stuff on the Corona Labs blog where they talk about. They do a lot of translation between a pixel and distance on the device. So they do some sort of magic there that makes it to where every pixel on the screen is something that you can work with, but it has a scale to it.
Right.
And that's how they do. I think, if I understand correctly, I probably don't. I think that's how they do the dynamic content scaling and all that kind of stuff.
Right. I'm not exactly. I think you're correct that when we're talking about Corona units, we're talking about the scaling, because generally pre-Retina we're talking about 320 by 480 for our screen size. If we were working with a specific screen size, you would assume you're working with 320 by 480. Of course, when we went to retinal displays and higher resolution HD devices, we jumped that up to 640 by 960. So
okay.
This is the translation. So you can look at an actual versus the content. So an actual content height might not be the same as content height or width.
Gotcha. Okay. Good.
But when we get Walter on here, we'll ask him to explain it, because I'm sure that'll be good and technical.
Yeah, he'll probably love that. Yeah. What are Corona units?
That reminds me of like EM. Whenever I'm doing websites and stuff, how I can do it, specify something in pixels, EM, or point size. And both EM and point size never work cross-browser, so I always default to pixels. That way the design works on everything identically, because a pixel is a pixel is a pixel is a pixel. So I like their little note at the bottom that says, we are evaluating whether behavior around K9, if the units should be in pixels or in system units. I'll vote for pixels. Can I vote for pixels?
So in build 9.12 for Android and iOS, they added the ability to display the App Store details of other apps via native show pop-up App Store. So Brian, you had mentioned before maybe that was so that you could show in-app purchases or show
other
details.
apps that you've possibly made. You want to advertise your apps.
That would make sense, like related apps.
Right. Okay. Hey, if you liked this app, maybe you'll like one of these others. Buy it now.
Yeah, that's always good. Yeah, cross promotion. Well, and it works. If you do like that person's app, why wouldn't you want more of that?
Yeah. We have
On the
favorite
Macs,
authors. Maybe we're going to develop followings for app writers, just like authors. Wouldn't that be cool?
everything these days is the person is the brand, right?
That's right.
So
Superstar!
yeah.
We had some friends that did that. They went from job to job as the social media manager, and really the company is not hiring them as an employee, they're hiring them as a brand. It's really cool when you think about it, because when he goes to the next job, his brand goes with him. And
Right.
he only says things that are, truthful, because his brand is his life. That's his income. So he doesn't say anything that's out of the ordinary or out of sorts for anybody, because honesty is his life. That's his income.
Yeah. Well, as long as he doesn't go senator on anybody and start tweeting
That's true.
things, he'll be all right. In build 9.12, the Mac Simulator, they also lifted the build restrictions for iOS 6. We talked about that earlier. But you do have to be a paid, authorized iOS developer to be able to build with. And so it means you have to have distribution keys to be able to submit to the App Store. So not just, I don't think that's just the general release. Then you have to have. I wonder if that's. I still think that's probably based on the fact of whether or not you have some sort of distribution profile or something. Whether or not you're able to. I don't know what the flag is for that. Do you?
Well, if you're going to have the pro version or the iOS developer version of Corona, if you've paid the money, you've probably also paid the $99 to Apple to be a distributor, to have your standard license.
But I wouldn't think that would necessarily guarantee it, right? I mean, you could just be somebody with a whole lot of more money than sense.
Well, there could be a few, but if you've done that, then you've also agreed to Apple's privacy concerns.
Right.
And that's what Corona is concerned about, is just simply making sure they've got all their I's dotted and T's crossed to keep all the lawyers happy.
Cool. All right. Well, that's all the build announcements. We are up to build 9.12 as of today, which is September 17th. So we'll have to wait to see what they come out with next time. So let's move on to some Corona announcements then, and kind of look at what's going on there, because I know last week we had iOS 6, iPhone 5 out, and the Corona guys were busy doing stuff too. So let's see what they've got going on. Joff, you want to spearhead that?
Sure. We got obviously build 9.12, but Letterbox for older apps that are running on iPhone 5. Is that what you're talking about?
That's cool. That's cool. We kind of talked about that on Corona Geek. We published an article on that, and the Corona Labs blog featured an article about that as well. That and they even came out right out and talked about it on the Apple event. That older apps will just be letterboxed. There'll be basically be black bars on either side, and your app will be centered right in the middle. So no need to reconfigure or change or do anything apart from if you want to take advantage of the larger space, you can. So I think that's great. I mean, makes perfect sense. No real surprises there.
Yeah, it sounds like the difference between the display height versus content height. You can take advantage of that now.
Right.
Cool. Well, obviously you have to have a new splash screen to support all of that extra screen real estate.
Now, one of the things they did do, right, is now you have a default -568h at 2x.png file that you put into your project folder. What's that? Anybody? I just wonder how that one got named. I don't know if that is 568 like Apple. Is that like iPhone 5 and then 68 means something?
iOS 6, and it should be phone number 8. I don't know.
Works for me.
I'm just making this up as I go along. So.
Sounds like it was Corona Day at the Corona Labs. I'm sure there's a reason, and the at 2x that makes sense. It's a Retina display, right? So that's their naming convention so far has been anything with the 2x is a Retina. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
Am I right?
Okay.
Okay. Please stop me if I'm just making stuff up.
Well, hey, why not? I mean, it's not like we work for the company or anything. We can make stuff up and let them.
Oh, this is true. This is true. Yes, we don't work for Corona Labs. All right, let's move on to some newbie questions because I love the newbie questions.
Before we do the newbie questions, Brian said something earlier about being able to do a pinch zoom as on the simulator. I want to know how to do that because I got like my map app right here in front of me, and I had no clue how to simulate a pinch zoom gesture on the simulator. And so, I can only go like this to my screen so many times until somebody laughs at me.
Well, let me clarify that. When I say simulator, I mean Xcode Simulator.
Not the
okay, not the Corona.
Yeah, I guess I should have clarified that. Yeah, you can do a pinch zoom with the Xcode. I don't think you can do that with the Corona simulator, but of course, once you've got your build, you can put it onto one of the other simulators and be able to test that pinch zoom functionality.
Yeah, I had to put like boxes up here where I could basically mimic it just to see if my functions worked, because at some point you kind of go, oh my, is it really working or not? So. But that worked for me.
Yeah. Now, once you get it into the Xcode simulator, what do you have to do? You have to like hold command or something?
Yeah, it's like a control click drag for pinching and zooming with the Xcode simulator.
Okay. So again, not just
get on your screen.
Lift your left foot, grab the.
That's right.
It just all works. All right. Well, anyway, I just had to know about that because I was really curious about how to do that.
No, that's an excellent question.
Okay. Since I can't do that, we'll move on to sprites. Now, I've used sprites in CSS quite a bit for website stuff, so I was really curious about it whenever you start getting into mobile apps is, how does that translate? And that's when I ran across Sprite Sheets, which was really cool because you're doing almost the same thing, but for slightly different reasons, because I know it started off for animation, but now they've made it to where it's okay for static graphics too.
Right.
So Brian, what is a sprite sheet?
Okay. Well, first of all, we need to define what a sprite is. And a sprite is just simply a captured image in the PNG format so that it'll be compatible with all of our mobile devices, and it's going to be a certain size. We like to use power of 2 graphic sizes for our images, so it's it's 64 by 64, 128 by 128. It just makes loading go much more quickly if we can use power of 2 sprites. However, that wastes a lot of space because if I've drawn a pretty little sprite, maybe I want a sprite that's just simply a capital letter that's in a very artistic format. So I've gotten into Photoshop and I've drawn a real pretty letter B for Burton. And I want to show that on my site. So I create that as a sprite and save it in the PNG format. It's not going to necessarily use 64 by 64 or 128 by 128. It may be 64
you don't have
by...
Bs?
Yeah, it's not going to use all that space. Well, if I've got other characters, say A, B, C, D, that I also want to use in my web page or in my app, I can create that as a sprite sheet. And that takes advantage of that extra space that's left over when I'm creating that efficient power of 2 graphic size. So my A might only use 64 by 12, and my B uses 64 by 20. And so it packs them all in together, one after another, and that creates a sprite sheet. It has all the graphic images that I'm going to use inside that app in just simply 1 or 2 sheets, which is much more memory efficient.
So the overall sheet is still a power of 2. Is that what you're saying?
That's the goal, yes. Not everybody follows that, but that is the goal, and that's going to make your app run more efficiently.
So basically,
Okay.
a single PNG, 128 by 128, with like, 4 or 5 different graphics on it, and you just reference where it is on that, correct?
Yes, and there's some great tools out there uh, through the Corona third-party tools that allow you to do the packing for you. It will go through and figure out, oh, hey, here's a whole bunch of white space. We don't need that. Cut that out. Let's get it down to just the area that I'm actually going to be displaying, and then it'll take all the letters, pack them in there the most space efficient possible so that you conserve memory.
Okay. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, because memory is a concern for mobile devices for sure, right? I mean, the iPhone 5 has what, a gig of memory, but the previous devices had 512, I think.
Uh,
That's the
Back in the early days, it was 256,
yeah.
and with the 3G, things like that. 4, I think we went up a little bit, but I can't confirm nor deny 512.
Yeah, well, the article that I read was that the iPhone 5 was a gig, and which is on par with Galaxy S3 and those types of devices that are coming out right now, and that it had, prior to that it had been 512. So so still a lot more memory to work with, but you're still
We're
on a
still dealing with memory limitations like we would have back in the 1990s when we were creating our original websites and apps for
yeah.
the internet.
Yeah, which I think also, I mean, I would imagine also has to do with just efficiencies everywhere.
Yes.
The more efficient your application is, the less memory it takes, less processor, less everything. Conserves battery life. It's a better user experience overall. I mean, just you don't want to be that app that sucks all the resources.
Right.
and that everybody knows, it's a great game, but it sure sucks.
On my device, yes.
On my device, yeah, you don't want to be that device. Okay, cool. Well, we'll get into texture packers and looking at those specific. We'll review those apps in a later time, but we just want to kind of cover sprites and sprite sheets and what they are and how they can benefit you.
Yeah, there's a lot of those different applications out there that helps you like smush stuff together, or was it dithering and a few other things that really go above my pay grade. I really just want to spend $30 and have somebody who has lots of experience do it all for me in about 10 seconds.
Yes.
Right.
And there's also some great tools out there for those that are old Flash developers. Flash hasn't gone away. We're just simply probably not going to be using it for as much web development, but for actually developing for other applications like your mobile applications, you can make sprite sheets in Flash incredibly quickly and then use some of these third-party tools to be able to create your sprite sheets from your Flash and use tweening and all those great things that we've grown to love about Flash over the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I don't want to get off on this whole thing, but it's really interesting how Flash became, like, it seemed like, from an outside perspective, it seemed like almost overnight it just became bad Flash. I mean, I know it was something that's building for a long time, but just overnight, it's everybody just, like going to a club and being turned away. I'm sorry, you're not on the list anymore. But I was here last Tuesday. All right, so moving on then, I guess, to Corona blog highlights. If you want to read more about the Corona, the guidelines for Corona iOS with iOS 6 and iPhone 5, then we will put a link to the show notes because there's a whole article over there that Walter wrote about how to work with iOS 6, iOS 5, iOS 5, iPhone 5, what you can expect and how you can use Corona with that. So we won't go into that in a lot of detail because we got some other things we need to move on to, but that's definitely a good read. It's probably maybe a 2-3 minute read. I mean, so definitely worth the time.
So tell me about Glider.
Thank you. So let's move on to app reviews here. Lua Glider. Now this is an app that last week you, Brian, talked about Corona Project Manager. So this is another app or another tool that's kind of in the IDE or Integrated Development Environment camp, and it was formerly called Cider. So if you go and search for Lua Glider, you might come across references for Cider. But basically, this is an integrated development environment. It's an editor. It's a project manager, and I've been using it for a while, and I enjoy it. It kind of works the way that I work. It doesn't get in your way. The tool's fairly clean. You can get to access to windows and pull up little panels when you need them, but for the most part, everything is kind of out of your way. So all you see are your files that are in the project and your code, which is kind of the way I like to do it. I mean, I either want to just open Notepad or TextMate or something like that, or I want some kind of specialized tool that helps me in some fashion. And so for the most part, it's a Mac or Windows application, so no platform left behind. That's a George W.
Linux
reference there.
Linux.
And who what?
Linux.
Linux.
Oh well, I guess Linux. Yeah, I guess there is. Well, maybe there's. Well,
Child.
There's been a
Some
platform left behind.
some children are left behind. Okay, so. Well, you could run Linux on a Mac or whatever. Anyway. So you've got a nice, good project view, which I like, and they do it kind of I really haven't figured out. They have a project view and a file view, which gives you I could look at your file system, but you can always also do this project view, which kind of shows you all the different projects. So you can look at eight different projects in one look, or you can go down to a project and look in the file view and just look at the files for that project. So it's kind of an interesting mix. But they've also got code completion. They've got code versioning, which I actually like because as you're working on your code, you can go back and see what changes you made, 2 or 3 saves ago, which is really good because sometimes, as you start like trying to troubleshoot something, trying to start ripping things out, you start copying and pasting code or you start making copies of files and you're trying to okay, I want to go back, I want to make changes, but I don't want to lose what I've got. And then sometimes you're like, oh, what was it? What did I do again? I did this. It was great, but now it's not on my clipboard anymore. I removed it and it's not there anymore. So the code versioning is a very useful tool, I think, and it even will give you a visual representation. It'll bring up the code on each side of the panel, and it'll show you where the code was in the changes. So it'll show you what the old code was, and then it'll give you like a little line that shows you where it was, and so that's a nice little indicator there.
So like a mini SVN?
What's that?
Like a mini SVN?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, it does support full-blown versionings systems. So if you wanted to use some sort of SVN or GitHub or something like that, you can use those. So you can tap into those. But if you're just working on a file or in a project, and you've made several code changes,
which happens,
and you want to go back to something that you saved 3 saves ago or something like that, you can go back and find it.
Oh, I like that.
Which is kind of fun. It also has code folding, which I particularly like because, especially with Corona, because Lua language is a top-down. It's an interpreted language, so everything is executed from top down. Well, there's times though that it's not a very self-describing. Is that the right term? Kind of language. It's not. There's times when it's hard to block off sections of the app and say, okay, well, here's the section that does this, and here's the section that does that, and so you wind up with a lot of functions. You'll wind up with a lot of different things that you might want to pick through. So with code folding, I can fold up my functions, and I can see things. I can see the code with a lot less noise. I can say, okay, here's the function. I enter the function, then I can open up the function and look inside to see what's inside there, and stuff like that. And it also has in addition to that, it also has a function view. So if you just want to leave your code completely expanded, you can open up the function navigator and you can go over and look at just the functions. And so that way you can jump to a function in your code without having to go line by line and figure out, well, where was that? Somewhere near here, down near the bottom, So that's a nice little feature. It also has code highlighting and not just syntax highlighting, like making sure that Lua is formatted in a certain way, but it has code highlighting in that I can select a piece of code, like maybe I've defined a variable at the top of my code, and all throughout the rest of the code, it'll highlight where that variable was used in my code. So real quickly, I can say, okay, I can jump to and see what's going on, and it has because it has highlighting, I can it stands out from the rest of the code. So I really like that. That's a great feature, and that's really it. I mean, kind of like I said, it's got a lot of the one of the biggest things, and I think we talked about this either last time or maybe 2 shows ago, was it's got a built-in output console. So all I have to do is open the project, and then hit build, or not hit build, but hit what do they call it? They actually have a term for it here. Maybe is it build? Run the main project. It's like a little play button. I do that, and it'll automatically open up Corona for me. It'll automatically open up the Corona terminal, and so I can see the output from my app, all the behind-the-scenes output from my app. So it's pretty cool. I like it. And I think, it's only like $20, $30 maybe?
No, I think it was $50.
Was it?
I think so. I think it was like comparable. Let me go look.
Oh. Well, whatever it costs, it's definitely worth it. It was definitely it saved me a lot of time.
Oh, see, I typed in glider rather than Lua Glider, so I'm getting all sorts of cool stuff.
It's not a glider.
It's just it flies.
Well, and that code versioning feature, that we've all been in the code, and it's like, hey, this was working when I started and sat down, and now it's not. What did I change? So that versioning history, that's a valuable feature. Yeah, $49.99.
Yeah, it's easy to break your own code. For
yes.
Sure. Well, I'm gonna claim that's a change. That is a change because I think it was.
I heard we were doing a review. And
well, they just came out with the new version today, so I don't know if maybe that was a change in that, but it's got all the now it's got all the Lua Glider branding. There's a lot more features in it, and it has a lot of different skins and things like that, and it's a whole lot easier to get the panels out of your way. I mean, before the panels would kind of get out of your way, but now you can kind of close all the panels if you want. You can move them around. It's a really good tool, I think. Now, the one thing I didn't see what you mentioned in the Corona Project Manager, Brian, was that with Lua Glider, you open up the project and you're opening up the project as is. You had mentioned that in the Corona Project Manager, you shared assets across projects.
Yes, and it doesn't actually. It pulls them from whatever folder they happen to be in when you do the build or go to publish. But that way you can have just simply one copy of the asset and tweak it or adjust it as need be. So I can use buttons across project. I got a submit button, it's perfect, and I can just simply drag it into the folder, and if I adjust that, it'll adjust for all the different folders.
See, now I would love to see something like that in Lua Glider. Now, it may be, and I just don't know how to use it, but if it is, it's not, it's not overtly obvious. So, but I think that's a really great feature in Corona Project Manager. I would love to see in something like Lua Glider. So anyway, that's my app review. I like it. It's something definitely worth checking out. You can download a trial version of it and see what you think for yourself. So let's move on to device news. And you had talked, Brian, last week about the Microsoft Surface Developer Program. So how do we get hooked up with that?
You can't.
Oh, awesome.
You can't? Why not?
I did some research on this just over this weekend, and Microsoft is taking applications to be in the early developer, which the release is about 6 weeks out right now. Wow. But Microsoft is limiting who is allowed to, and basically you have to have already published for Windows in the past for Windows Phone 7 or something like that. At least that's what I get from reading the material. And then you have to make application to be accepted to receive the early version of the SDK. Otherwise, you got to wait until it's out there. So it sounds to me like if you didn't play with us from the beginning, you don't get a being on the early release of the app.
Ouch.
Plus, we're not done yet.
Oh.
The lowest price.
There's more.
There's more. The lowest price, according to the Microsoft website, is $1.49 for an app instead of 99 cents. So immediately, app purchasers are going to be paying 50% more for the exact same app that potentially was published to the iPhone or the Android.
Wow. Well,
and there's more.
Wow. Oh, there's more. Oh, sweet.
Just like Apple charges $99 to be in the developer's inner sanctum or inner room, Microsoft is also going to be charging $99 a year. So they've got that limitation placed upon you. And the proceeds are going to be 70%, just like Apple, just like Amazon and Google, until you hit the $25,000 in sales mark. Now, I'm still waiting to hit that personally, but once you hit $25,000, you get 80% of the proceeds.
Oh, well, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Thought you were going to say
in other words, Microsoft's made their money off of you, so it's okay now.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say the opposite. Yeah, once you hit the 25%, it's the 25,000 there. We're going to take 60%, 60-40. That's how it's going to go.
It's like income tax. We just keep raising the rate. The more you make.
We're going to take 90-10. That's right. That's right. You're going to pay us. See, that's how it's going to work.
Okay, so let me get this straight. If I want to export anything from Corona over to Surface, which not today, but basically I can't anyway, period, unless I go get the license from Microsoft and they're not handing those out because I haven't already done 7. Did you say 7 of those?
Well, no, for the iPhone 7. Published for the iPhone 7.
Oh, okay. For the iPhone?
But it's got to be something that's been accepted that Microsoft wants on their launch page when they say, hey, here's Windows 8 and the new Windows 8 phone and the Surface and all of that. It's got to be a product that they want on that launch page, which is very backwards from how Apple and Google have approached all of this. They wanted hundreds of thousands of apps for that initial launch. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's definitely one of the discussions that's going on is, how many apps do you have for your platform?
Yeah.
How what do you call it? How healthy is your ecosystem?
Right. And if you go to the Microsoft developers' blogs, the general consensus from developers is they're not happy.
All right.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Now, Corona doesn't support that right now. Because it's still, it hasn't even been released. So, right.
That's one of those things we need to pin Walter on when we get him on the show.
Okay. So what's going to be the native language for the Surface? Is it going to be .NET?
It's .NET.
Is that
building, I believe, with C#, but I think you could also do C++.
Okay. So that's good for all the developers who can port over their skills for .NET.
Yeah.
That's great. But yeah, that's a little disappointing. The price, the $1.49. It makes a big difference.
Yeah.
People are kind of accustomed. 99 cents is a no-brainer. I don't know. 99 cents is a no-brainer whatsoever. Whatever. Let's stick a gum.
It really is nowadays. You're so accustomed to, 99 cents, that's not a big deal. I'll go try it. And if I don't like it, it's only 99 cents.
I'm only out $1, yeah.
Exactly. So you very low risk. I mean, I've had certain apps where it's like, I don't know, that's $4.99. That's really expensive, compared to the $70 game you would buy for your actual PC. It's nothing. But it's for whatever reason you have that boundary that you kind of go, ooh, $4.99 for an iPhone app. But 99 cents, yeah, we're good.
Well, and
Oh yeah.
I did some reflecting on this, and I'm wondering if it won't have the impact of raising prices on the iTunes and Amazon stores. That as a developer, well, I set it at $1.49 on Microsoft. Shouldn't I also set it at $1.49 on Apple, Google Play, and the Amazon App Store?
Mm-hmm.
It could have a reverse effect.
Well, that kind of brings up I mean, not that Microsoft's headed in the right direction. I don't know if they are or they aren't, but it does bring up the conversation of what should be the actual price for apps. I mean, 99 cents is what people are accustomed to and things like that, but there's a lot of work that goes into apps, and some of these apps are incredible, and you're getting it for 99 cents.
Right.
So I think the natural progression would be, yes, that eventually prices would have to go up.
The statistics out there say that, and this is from earlier this year, I read this, that the average median app, so 50 percentile on downloads, 50% are downloading more, 50% are downloading less, but the average app right there in the middle gets 800 downloads per month. So if I hit that 50 percentile, which, let's face it, first couple of apps, you hit 50 percentile, you've done a great job. So you're selling it for 99 cents, you're getting, 70% of that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that you're not going to live on that.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And yeah. There probably does need to be. It probably, I don't know. I think it will eventually go up, but it just seems like 99 cents is such such an impulse buy.
Yes.
It's just such an impulse buy. Which now you shift from the conversation of building the app, getting the app approved, and out there into the marketplace, and into marketing the app, making sure that people are aware of it, and selling them based on volume. So anyway, that's
check out my screen here. We definitely have a question for Walter here. According to this sentence, Schacht also noted that game engines and frameworks such as Corona SDK and
Whoa.
Unity can now be ported to Windows Phone 8. And this is as of June 20th, 2012.
Huh.
So, yeah, we got a question there for him. Sweet.
So this is VentureBeat?
Absolutely.
Website?
Here, I'll send you the link.
Okay.
yeah. That
Well,
would be
that's
definitely.
exciting.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to ask him those questions there. Don't show me your email.
Sorry.
So yeah, I had a thought that went along with that. Totally gone. Yeah, we'll definitely get him on the line and try to answer those types of questions.
Well, if we can't get Walter, we'll get David Rangel or somebody in here that can talk to us about some of this exciting developments, because we are just 6 weeks from launch.
Yes. Let's get some news. Did you know that the Surface was actually was the big tabletop version?
Yes.
And
I remember
Yes.
that.
and then
When they
then
announced the name of it, I thought, but that's the tabletop. That's the big one. It's
yeah. But I just thought that was funny because, yeah, exactly. They totally rebranded that. So now every time you go and search for Surface anything, Surface Developer Program, Surface anything, it's all that tabletop version.
So you need to put in Surface Tablet.
Right. You have to put in Surface Tablet, which the other one has been rebranded to Pixel Sense or something like that, which is, yeah.
Silly.
I don't know.
Are they even making
I guess
it?
if you're what's that?
Are they even making it? I've never actually seen one in production.
I don't know. I don't know. I think it's probably relegated to casinos or something like that.
It reminds me of the old Galaga games at like the Pizza Hut, where you had
Yes.
like a table so you could put your piece of pizza there and two people could play next to each other.
Now you got me hungry.
I'm telling you, the moment Microsoft said, "Hey, it's the new Surface," I was like, "Well, they already have that. It's the Galaga game at the Pizza Hut."
That's right. All right, so let's end up here with the API spotlight. Let's talk about physics. Not like nuclear physics, right?
Physics are fun.
Physics are fun. Now, a lot of the games are termed physics-based games. Is that the same thing we're talking about? Physics?
Yeah.
That kind of?
Yeah, that's exactly, because the Corona engine has built into it the Box 2D physics engine, which allows us to do all kinds of neat and nifty things, so that, in 5 lines of code, I can turn physics on in Corona rather than 20, 30, 40, 50 in native code. And I've got gravity. I can simulate, negative gravity. I can, have things falling, colliding, checking for collision. I can have bullet time. I can do some amazing things with the physics. I can have joints, so one thing will swing off of another thing, and you get chain links or ropes that can truly simulate a physics type environment, as well as you can in a 2D type environment.
Well, now in Corona though, they don't. Everything's a display object, right? Is that
we create the display object, and then we add it to the physics engine after it's created as an object. So I could load an image that looks like a crate onto the screen, and it's still just simply an image of a crate on the screen. It's not going to be affected by the physics engine until I add it to the physics engine. So I would add the object to the physics engine so that it became aware of it. That way I can have text at the top of the screen, like lives and how much health is left and all, that important data. And it's not affected by the physics engine. Otherwise, it would fall.
I think your score should be totally knocked off the screen whenever the ball goes flying. That would be cool. Okay, so one line of code gets us access to the physics engine.
Yes.
Okay, and then from there we can apply the physics to any of these display objects. Now the Box 2D thing, I went and looked, and so Corona has written a wrapper around.
Yes.
Okay, and what I noticed was that there was the box. You can go use Box 2D, but there's like a main version, and then there's like a iPhone version, and then there was like you say. I mean, you've got like maybe a lot more lines of code, so it's definitely a much more cumbersome process to use something like Box 2D itself, and then still try to write it across multiple platforms, which Corona allows you to do it to write the app across multiple platforms.
Right.
So what do you got? What do you got there, Toph? You got the physics. So yeah, we've got what? So scroll back up. We've got get gravity. Scroll down a little bit. Kind of.
Functions on the left.
I know, but they're harder to read. There we go. Bigger font. So we can get gravity. We can create a new joint. We can what was this?
Pause. Remove body. Continuous. Draw mode.
So what's the set continuous? What does that do?
Ooh.
A little exploratory.
Continuous collision.
Oh yeah, it's for bullets. If you've shot something or shooting an arrow or firing a bullet, it's so that the physics engine is constantly paying attention to that one object continuously to detect for collisions. Otherwise, it may be moving so fast that if I'm only checking every couple of milliseconds, it might have actually moved through the object that I'm trying to collide with. So it's continuously checking.
Okay, so this is separate. This is different than, say, setting like a function that's called over and over and over again, right?
Right. It is continuously checking it for you in the background, but that also uses a lot of processing power. So you got to be very careful with that.
So you, for example, don't want to do checking on every one of your
not
objects
continuously.
Not continuously.
So, if I've got crates that I'm dropping on one another and I'm just looking at the collision and how they bounce, I don't need to be continuously checking for that collision. But a bullet's very small. generally speaking. And so I need, the area of its collision is very small. And so
Gotcha.
I've got to be continuously checking for when it might hit something.
Yeah,
Okay, okay, I got you.
I like the whole example of a ragdoll blaster that I've played before, where you've got essentially multiple connection points that are constantly interacting. And so we're saying one way to solve that is to turn off continuous physics because you really are going to have an awful lot of processing in the background.
Yeah, I read it. I read something about being able to detect before collision, and that was also a very expensive operation. So you've got the actual when two things collide, and you've got before two things collide. So continuously checking to see if two things are actually going to collide was a very expensive operation. So all those types of things you want to keep those in check, I guess. All right. Well, we're going to post a link to that in the show notes, though, then for the API Spotlight, since we talked about physics. And there's also a whole Corona Physics API, I guess, article on the Corona Labs website. We'll link to that as well, where they give an in-depth explanation about how all that kind of stuff works and how you can use Corona to apply physics to your app.
And I've got a whole chapter devoted just to the physics in my book too. So it's
Cool.
Yes, and let's not forget about that too, because I know that there's a whole. I mean, you develop a game out in the book, right?
Two games.
That works with the
Yeah,
physics
both of
engine,
them are
so.
using the physics engine. So it's
Okay. Which carries you through the whole process of setting up the objects, detecting for collision, all that kind of
using
stuff.
bullets, the whole thing. So
Okay. Yeah, so if you're interested in more information about that, then you'll have to go over to burtonsmediagroup.com and check out Brian's book. There's 2 editions there, and you can either have one that has the teacher's edition or the regular edition. Is that the best way to summarize it?
the educational version, which has assignments and projects and questions and things like that. But if you don't need an assignment because you're an indie developer, then you can go with the other version.
See, I totally flush that information. It's always about the answers in the back of the book.
I don't give any answers in the back of the book. The teachers are on their own.
So it's more about assignments. If
Yes.
you want assignments,
Assignments,
to do that,
questions, thinking points, things like that.
excellent. Yeah. Okay. Good. What are you showing this there, Toph? What do you got on your screen?
Oh, I'm the physics API for Corona.
Yeah, that's definitely a good read. I mean, there's some things in there a little bit over my pay grade, but definitely, and I think that's actually where they got into talking about. Corona automatically translates between the familiar on-screen units and the internal metric units of the physical simulation. I was like, what?
And everything is in meters, not feet or inches.
Oh, okay. So is that how they translate it?
Yes.
So is that how you think is that where they go back to the pixels? Everything is a pixel.
Well,
And then
no, you've got some control over what your relative distance is, but everything is when it says units, it means a meter. And that's the same for all game development environments, whether we're talking about Unity or Unreal or using Corona. It talks about game units, and that's generally set at 1 meter.
Okay, we're going to need to put together a whole session on just game terminology.
Yes.
Because there's the more I read, getting into Corona is extremely easy. You can get an app up and running. The SDK is easy to work with. The Lua language is easy to work with. But I keep running into concepts that like a Sprite Sheet or texture packers or things like that, where I'm like, what the heck is that, and what does that do? And what do these two tools seem to overlap, and they both say the same thing? Which one should I be using? Those types of things. So we'll definitely need to cover that on an upcoming show. All right. Anything else? Anybody got any other tidbits?
No, but I think I'm going to ask Walter when he's going to get the pinch zoom function in the simulator. How's that? What did you say? There was like Control Alt, lift your left foot, and drag.
I'm sure he would love that question. You should ask him that. Well, if we get him on the show, we'll be sure to ask him. All right. Well, then, thank you everyone for joining us today for this fifth episode of the Corona Geek. And if you have any questions, you can send them to questions@coronageek.com, and we will try to feature them on an upcoming show. And if you haven't seen our previous episodes, then you'll want to go over to YouTube and look up Corona Geek. We've got, like I said, 4 other episodes over there. You can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Corona Geek. And as always, we are on Google+. So thanks for being with us, and we'll talk to you next time.
Take it easy.
Bye.